So, welcome to the Fulfillment Focus podcast. And I am here with my new friend and guest, Andrew Mellen, just like the lemon. And Andrew, I'm so happy to have you on this interview to really talk about life and the category that I'm putting like this interview in. It could fall into so many categories, but specifically, I've been doing kind of focus interviews on different life categories like finance, relationship. And the one that I'm dedicating this segment to, even though it would really be applicable to them all, I'm dedicating this segment to leisure life.
Hmm.
And the reason, if you probably didn't already quickly jump to figure it out, is what you do for a living. I'm taking a leap to say, if executed properly, would give people the gift of more time to do the things that are most important to them. So I think that would be a perfect dedication. So
Sure.
Andrew, you are, I read somewhere, it's quoted as like one of North America's, or maybe North America's most organized man. That's a pretty big
Yes.
title.
Yeah.
When you hear that, what comes alive for you?
Well, I am organized, and the media likes superlatives, so I lean into letting the media call me the most organized man. And, I mean, here in the States, because we think we are America, they just say the most organized man in America, not
Okay.
not including the entire continent.
Oh man, I could go political very quickly with
Yeah,
that, but
I
I'm
know.
not going to.
We're to sidestep that for now.
One of my questions to you is, were you always organized? Like as a boy, as a little boy, what did your sock drawer look like as an example? Like, is this something that it was ingrained in you and then you developed it as a skill, or was this something that you, grew into?
Yeah. So looking back, I discovered that the things that mattered to me, I was organized about. So those were my Matchbox cars. That was my baseball card collection. The things that I actually cared about, I kept organized. Partly, you can't really trade baseball cards if you don't know what you have. It's the same thing if you're collecting something. In that case, I was collecting Matchbox cars, so I would get them as a reward for good grades in school or for a birthday or a holiday. So they mattered to me. So I kept them organized. It made playing with them easier and when you're collecting something, I didn't need three of the same ambulances. I needed a UK ambulance. I needed a US ambulance. I needed the one that looked like a station wagon, and then I needed the more boxy one. I didn't want three of the same kind. So it was the same. It's the same discovery that the things that mattered, that were aligned with my values as a child, I paid attention to. The things that didn't matter to me, I mean, there were always clean clothes in the drawer, so I wasn't particularly focused on did the socks match or who cared.
Right.
It wasn't important to me. And to your point, as I do this work in the world now as an adult, I know that it becomes easier to support folks in getting and staying organized when we tie it into their values. Case in point, if it buys them more time, if it, there's the fork in the road where what we do professionally, we want that to be as efficient and frictionless as possible so that our not work time, whether we're entrepreneurs and we're in some ways always thinking about our work, probably because a lot of it grew out of a sense of service. So it's hard to turn that off, nor am I suggesting anybody should turn it off. But the point is, if you're thinking of something at 11 o'clock at night and you want to record it, where would you park it so that in the morning when you walked into the office you could find it easily, as opposed to scribbling it on the back of an envelope, leaving it on the kitchen counter, and then when you walk into the office, it's not where you expect to be, or you don't know where it is, and you lost that great idea, that $1 million idea, in the same way that at the end of the day, when you're whether you're with your family or you're by yourself with your friends, and you want to be fully present for not working time, we certainly don't want things tugging on the back of your brain, on the back of your consciousness of like, oh, don't forget this. Remember, we got to do that. And what about this? And what about that? And oh, this is undone. And I can't find this and I need that. And all of that is wasted time.
So there's a statistic that says the average adult will waste a year or more of their life looking for lost or misplaced items. Now, nobody's going to spend a year of their life looking for a set of keys or a wallet, right? I call this nickel and diming ourselves out of a year of our life, because it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. We tell ourselves, the average adult also tells 200 lies a day. We tell ourselves one of our 200 lies that, oh, I'm going to make up that lost time. But the reality is that once the time has been spent, you can't make it back. So you've got a story that says you're going to get the time back, but you're not. So we can bank money, we can't bank time, which is why it's so important that we are aware of the choices we're making, which doesn't mean that you need to become sort of a robot or an automaton who's always productive. You can lay in a hammock and read a book. And my goal would be that if that's what you wanted to do, that you did it and you were all in, that you weren't partly reading the book in a hammock, but also worrying about the things you have to do when you get out of the hammock. I'd like you to be able to relax in the hammock and just enjoy your time. If it's the most important thing that you're choosing to do in that moment, then you should be able to do it without any distractions or interruptions.
Okay, perfect. So I want to go on, kind of follow that robot comment a little bit. I'm really curious with your clients and your students, because I know you have both.
Sure.
So when I kind of think about this, and even in my own experiences, one of my fears or worries is that all of a sudden you become this, like you create your meta models. So you have this robotic structure that in some ways makes you more robotic. Like makes you less flexible, I think is what the fear would be. It's like, am I all of a sudden going to replace my chaos with a clear system, but now always being anxiety about keeping my system sorted? So I'm curious, what's your experience with that, like fear, if you have a client or like that, that's a legitimate thought that I've had, and somewhat
Lots
of
of
an
people have that
experience that I've
fear,
had with
right?
people.
Particularly creative people have that fear. I'm gonna lose my spontaneity. I'm gonna lose my creativity. Of course, you're not. If you've got story, if you've got trauma, if you've got story, if you've got something in your past in which you equate discipline and structure with a lack of adaptability, that needs to be addressed. And we would want to address that in any work that we were doing. So they aren't married in an absolute sense. They're married in your psyche or in your body somewhere, that you've mashed them together and created a fictional reality in which discipline equates lack of spontaneity, lack of agility, lack of flexibility, and if you have any perfectionist tendencies, then you would also be firing those around. Once I built this beautiful cage, I must live inside this beautiful cage, and it's an unyielding, beautiful cage, and I don't wish to be caged. So I resist the cage. It's not a cage. There are no bars. The bars are in your imagination. It's structure, right? I mean, hopefully you don't think about brushing your teeth or flossing or eating or bathing or any of the other things that you do regularly in your life. Showing up on time and staying focused should be no more constrictive than those things. You appreciate the benefit of, hopefully fresh breath and not dental reconstruction because you've neglected your oral hygiene, and you're wearing clean clothes, and you smell as fresh as you like to smell, right? Whether you're wearing scent or you're not, you've bathed and you feel good and clean in your clothes. Organization shouldn't be any more constrictive than that, right? I mean, if you're wearing clothes that are too tight for you, and that's not a deliberate choice because you want to show off your muscles, then it shouldn't, you would still be consciously choosing, oh, I'm wearing tight clothing deliberately. It was a choice. It wasn't a surprise. You didn't buy clothes that were a size too small and then discovered, I don't know why I bought smalls, I'm a medium. You bought smalls because you wanted what smalls offered you. It's the same thing if you create a structure and a schedule for yourself in your calendar, because you decided that I want the outcome of that, and you're also not, you don't suddenly surrender self-care and compassion because you have a little more structure. They're not required.
So in that on pairing, would you say, and I don't know if it's a fair question, I like how much exposure you have to your clients and your students afterwards. They would kind of probably require that you have some exposure.
Oh, sure.
So I'm curious, would you say that after a person has put their system in place, um, you've seen many examples, majority of examples, you fill in the blank of people are still maintaining their adaptability, their flexibility, their flow and their ease.
Yeah, 100%. Um, Great art is created using fundamental principles of perspective, color. Um, uh, Picasso could draw something photorealistically prior to cubing things, right? I mean, the spring pad for cubism came off of his ability to accurately depict things in 2 dimensions. He found that limiting. I mean, I'm guessing, never had a conversation with him, but I'm guessing he found that limiting and he wanted to play with trying to depict things in a different way. That was built off of the structure of um, accepted principles of spatial arrangements. Jazz is built on math. You can't improvise if you don't understand structure. If you don't understand basic chords, you have no ability to improvise. So the idea, it's I understand where it comes from, the fear of too much structure will pen me in, and probably too much structure will. The right amount of structure is actually the spring pad to greater freedom.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate like the the way that you talked about, well, if that's there for you, we like that's a real thing and we deal with that, right? We work with that in creating your system because if that limiting belief exists, it's probably going to manifest. And you even mentioned trauma, right? Because I even think of some of my personal experiences where I've seen people run a system and they're not sometimes people that I want to be around because of their level of fixation on the system where I'm just like, ah. Um, so that's an
Well, that's probably, I mean, again, that's probably more about their desire to always be in control than it is to get an outcome, right? It's the world feels a little random and or unpredictable as it is. I mean, there are patterns, and at the same time, there's a lot of things we don't have control over. So if that freaks you out on some fundamental level, right? If as you do the dance with your own mortality, you feel freaked out about how little control you have, you might be grasping at anything that you can control to quiet that fundamental discomfort that a clock that you have no control over and really no insight into is ticking in the background, and at some point it will stop ticking and you will cease to exist in the form that you're in, and that freaks you out. I think it's a pretty human feeling, and at the same time, the way out of it is the way through it, is to come to terms with the fact that yes, that is actually something that is true. I don't have control over. I mean, I can eat right, I can exercise, I can avoid poisons as often as possible, and this thing is going to last for as long as it does. And when it times out, it times out. Maybe there will be medical intervention, and maybe there won't be. And at that point, it's over. So if that dissonance um, is something that you want to quell, consciously or unconsciously, then you will try to create control wherever you can, because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for that. This mindset, right? This mind mess that can happen. It feels like something that might be quite essential, right? To like living inside your system with joy versus like managing it all the time. So is that mindset and helping people to flow in and out of the disruption in their system, because disruption will happen, is that something that you deal with directly when you're in your book and in your teachings?
Yes, and certainly disruption, interruptions, distractions occur. I think that remaining open to what arises as it
Mhm.
arises and meeting it, and then either moving into it or setting it aside, is there are all of those forks in the road. Something
Mhm.
occurs, it now is more important than what I was doing, so I'm going to pivot into it. It's less important than what I'm doing. It's present, but it's less important. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to put it in a parking lot, and I'll return to it when I choose to give it the attention that I think it deserves, not the. When things arise, they arise with a certain amount of intensity. If the house is literally on fire, that's going to get more attention and more attention than if the dog needs to go outside, or your kid is tugging on your sleeve, or the phone's ringing. All of
Mhm.
those, you get to meet them, and like, you can go open the door, you can have a doggy door installed, you can tell your kid, I'm on a Zoom call, if you're not bleeding, I'll be with you in 15 minutes, go find something to do. Or
Yeah.
if you are bleeding, I need to get off Zoom call and take you to the hospital.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, so we meet the things as they arise, and we determine how important it is. Is it more important than what I'm doing? Is it as equally important? Is it less important? And make decisions based on that. So nothing that I teach is about rigid adherence to
Mhm.
something external. All of the structures are there to support you in shorthand, right? Living your best life, staying
Yeah.
aligned with your values, and making choices that are meaningful to you. And of course, it's because it's a process. We're also uh, meeting ourselves with some grace and compassion.
Yeah.
What I think is important to me today might not be important to me tomorrow. I don't need to then shame myself or guilt myself like, oh, I really spent a lot of time on that yesterday. Maybe I shouldn't have. Well, you did. So maybe today you'll spend less time on it than you did yesterday, but you've done it. So there's no point in tormenting yourself over what has happened. If you want corrective behavior, recognize, oh, that happened yesterday, not so happy with the results. Let's make a different choice today. Every day that we wake up, and really within the day, every moment, we have an opportunity to do something else or to do what we're doing. I mean, even when we're trading time for money, either as entrepreneurs or if we're working with, as an employee someplace, there's still a certain amount of autonomy in how do you do customer service? How do you load a box in a warehouse? How do you mop a floor? So nobody is a robot.
Yeah.
Other than a robot.
I like so much about that, and it also reminds me of kind of where I saw our work. We do very different things in the world, and at the core of it, we do there's a really strong similarity of helping people clarify what's important and kind of taking that step back to be what's important, and then as you're describing, I'm imagining, and how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to prioritize it? How are you going to organize it? And once those are kind of set, then it's going to allow it to flow with actual more flow and ease. Always with, and it's actually one of the first principles we share in our practice, always with radical compassion. So you mentioned that it's like, yeah, things are gonna happen. You always have this, eminent choice to make.
Yes.
It's getting clear on your choices. So I really, really, really love that. Okay, let's switch a little bit back into the story of you. As you see, we're going to be flowing in and out of examples and kind of how you got here. So how did, as an entrepreneur, as a creative entrepreneur, you have lots of choices, lots of different paths to choose. At what point did you decide that this path of organizing, unstuffing people's lives, how do you decide this is the one I'm going to stay on and keep, writing and keep creating and keep serving in the world? Was it a moment? Was it a year? Was it I'm really curious how a creative entrepreneur chooses their path to stay on for so long.
Yeah. Well, a certain amount of success motivated me to keep doing it, both financial success as well as the impact success.
Yeah.
I mean, both of those things were present. So, so I like winning. So
Yeah.
as I won, I wanted more winning.
Yeah.
My first career was in the theater. So 28 years ago now, I was laid off from a theater in Seattle, Washington that I had been running. And the next job or assignment I got after that was co-producing an award ceremony at the Kennedy Center. One of our awardees was a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and I went to his office to get some photographs so that I could create a slideshow for when he collected his award. In the process of going through their files, things were a mess, mislabeled, missing, things had been lent out and never returned.
Yeah.
I spent several hours in their files. I pulled together the images that I needed. And before I left their office and apartment, his wife actually invited me into their residence and said, what's your story? Who are you? I want to know.
Yeah.
So I told her, I was running a theater in Seattle. I'm now here in DC doing this, Washington, DC. I'm doing this award ceremony. When this is over, I'm going to return to New York, which is where I had moved to Seattle from. And at that point, she said, well, would you like to organize our photographs for us? And I said, I would love to do that. That would be a tremendous honor. I would love to help you create some order in your filing cabinet. So we made a date for me to go to work. And the day before I was supposed to go to work, the phone rang. Something has come up. They need to reschedule. We'll do it in January. January, the phone rings. We'll do it in February. February, phone rings. We'll do it in March. In March, they said, when we're ready to proceed, we'll get back in touch with you. So I don't ever actually go to work for him. But in those 4 months, I tell every person I'm meeting, I've got this amazing gig. I'm going to create a comprehensive photographic archive for a Nobel Peace Prize winner. That led to a friend that I was doing some freelance work with, referring me to her accountant who needed a filing system built for her. I built that filing system for her. She started referring her clients to me.
Mhm.
So people would show up literally with a duffel bag full of receipts saying, I've got a bunch of financial paperwork in this bag. I am overwhelmed by it. There's letters in here from the IRS. I don't want to go to jail. I'm freaked out. Can you make
Yeah.
sense out of this before something really bad happens? And so I would, and I gave the documents and I put everything in QuickBooks and gave it back to the accountant. The accountant filed their taxes, and inevitably they would say, "Oh my God, you're a genius. You saved my life." And they would tell all their friends, "You'll never believe it. I gave this guy a pile of garbage and he turned it into my tax returns. He's a genius." And they would say, "Who is he? I need
Mhm.
somebody just like that." And that was how this work began. I was still looking and doing freelance theater work at that point. I was looking to see about possibly getting another artistic director position. It didn't occur to me that I was transitioning. I was
Just
supporting
doing things.
myself while I was
Yeah.
job hunting. And the work kept coming and coming and coming, and I was having an impact, and I was getting compensated for it. And I remember very clearly standing on my front stoop in New York, having a conversation. I had just directed what to date has been the last play that I directed, which was artistically successful but not fun. The
Mhm.
actors were a pain in the butt, and I did not enjoy the process. And I was standing on my stoop talking to a friend and said, "I think I'm going to put the theater on a shelf." I mean, by this point, I think I'd appeared in probably 50 plays and I directed 40 plays in addition, and thought, other than a story that I have about being an artist and what that means in the world, if really, and it was the reason I was making art, was service, trying to prompt something in the audience that would create a catharsis and have some sort of an epiphany and encourage them to consider the choices they're making and then make different choices. If this was a natural extension, it just didn't look the same. So if I could let go of the ego story that said, "Oh, I must only participate in the world in a very particular way," one, albeit that I had trained and practiced for 20 plus years,
Mhm.
if 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 I can let go of the thing that says I must only participate in this way, then I'm free to pursue this other work that was coming and coming and coming and still be of service. And one of the things that I recognized, not unlike the baseball cards and Matchbox cars,
Mhm.
was, um, other than this idea that I had to make art with a capital A, if really what I was interested in was service, what I just discovered is that I removed a step from the process. I removed the metaphor. I didn't have to tell you a story and hope that you connected the dots. Now I
Mhm.
was directly telling you, do this, don't do that, and see if you get better results, instead of telling you a story and hoping that you would discern, oh, if I do this and don't do that, I will get these results. So it actually made it sped up the process for me, which I also appreciated. I, 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 a lot of the theater work that I did when I was working in the theater was improvisational, so it was quite immediate.
Yeah.
While I did lots of work with scripts, I
Yeah.
also did a lot of improvisational work where there was no script. And this was a natural extension of that work even more than formal work like, doing classical
Sure.
theater, Shakespeare, things things with scripts by playwrights.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I appreciate and hear the the transition from attachment is the word that's coming up, right? Like from, an initial attachment to an idea of who you were as an artist to as soon as that attachment released, just like I'm sure is it's more than metaphor, that is physically and mentally what you're helping people do is release the attachment to stuff
Mm-hmm.
and literally unclutter the rest. So to hear that happen in your career, uh, that makes a ton of sense. That mind game is really a big part of the process.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's transition now to, I want to do some rapid fire, like, hey, Andrew, here's what I'm dealing with. And I want your advice as an expert. Rapid fire, bust me around. I've seen you do it online. Go ahead, be tough on me. I can handle it. And then I want to end with exactly how people can, if they're interested in uncluttering their life, how they can use some of your expertise to do that.
Sure.
Okay. So context setting. Okay. To be fair, I live on 80 acres. Okay, we used to still run festivals, stuff like we need stuff. We need. Um, and I come from a father who owned a secondhand store, and one of my Gallup strengths is that I'm a maximizer. I like to use everything out of the end of my toothpaste tube. I'm kind of that type of like mentality.
Sure.
So I've got a lumber yard, and it's like full of like stuff that we might use someday, like excess stuff that I just, that I want to be able to build and do it, efficiently maximizing. It's getting out of hand. And there's stuff in there that it's like, I don't know, maybe half of it's garbage, but I might use it one day. And some of the regular rules don't feel like they apply. Well, you haven't used it in a year. Yeah, but there's stuff that I didn't touch for 5 years, and then we used it all, and it was a major blessing. So I've got like some stories that support keeping it.
Sure.
Yet, it's kind of ugly, even though we moved it, and it's just like, what do you think? How do you reply to my lumberyard woes?
Well, you got choices. You can spend a certain amount of time tidying it up and making it crisper and more attractive and keep everything. In the process of tidying it up, you might discover, oh, this really is garbage and this should be burned. Nobody's going to build anything with this. This is unnecessary. Or it's a precious species of wood that there's not enough to make a piece of furniture, and I would never use this for something not furniture grade. So I should get it to somebody who actually makes furniture. As you touch it one more time with the biggest vision of what am I going to do with these raw materials? And of course, so I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to anybody who has raw materials. Crafters, people who have yarn, people who have art supplies that they make, assemblage. They pick stuff up off the street and like, oh, this bottle cap, I'll use this in a piece of art someday. Maybe you will, if you know where to find it. If you don't know where to find it, you'll never use it. Yeah. So part of it is cataloging it enough. Now, let's be clear that in my world, I never want to spend more time with stuff than I need to. So tidying it up for tidying it up's sake, unless that brings you deep pleasure, you should only spend as much time doing it as you need to get where you want to be emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically. So I wouldn't say just go and spend hours and hours rearranging lumber unless it's satisfying. Otherwise, rearrange it enough so that you're very clear, like, these are boards, these are planks, these are scraps, and they're grouped like with like. The organizational triangle, one home for everything and like with like. Something in, something out. Those are the three rules to get and stay organized. One home for everything and like with like is how we get organized. Something in, something out is how we stay organized. So with one home for everything and like with like, driving your activities, in the barn or in the shed or in the lumber yard. We're grouping like with like so that we understand this is our inventory. There's value there. There's monetary value. There's utility value. So you should know what you have.
Yeah.
And things should be with their siblings so that when you need some of something, you don't have to go digging in 4 or 5 different piles to pull it all together. The act of doing that, one home for everything and like with like, will give you a lot of information about what you actually have and how useful it will be in the near future or the far future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you. The just a quick clear on that triangle, in and out. Can you just give say a little
So
bit more?
something in, something out. Once we've
Yeah.
achieved stuff equilibrium, once everything has a home and its siblings are together,
Yeah.
you are organized. You might still need to declutter, right?
Yeah.
Just because you put all of your black sweaters together, you might then discover, oh, I have 37 black sweaters.
Yeah.
Okay, good. 3 of them have holes in the elbow. 1 of them has a snag in the front of it. 1 of them that has a collar ripped. So suddenly, even though you had X amount of sweaters, you discover that Y amount of sweaters are really not usable anymore. It's hard to figure that out when they're not all grouped together. So then you can declutter and get down to just the sweaters you love that are flattering, and now we have a number. At that
Right.
point, in my world, why would you be shopping for another black sweater if you
Right.
weren't replacing one? It doesn't matter that they're practically giving them away. If you don't have enough time in the day to do all of the things that actually matter to you, why would you spend any of it doing something that doesn't matter to you just to accumulate new things when you're actually stealing time from the things that matter? So it's a simple math equation. I mean, we have feelings about it, and at the same time, the math tells us don't go to the mall and go window shopping if you don't really need anything. Read a book, play with the dog, go coach your kid's soccer team, cure cancer, bake a pie. I don't care what it is, but chances are any of those things are probably more meaningful to you and satisfying than consuming something that is unrequired for the quality of your life.
Yeah. And you can't get there unless you've done that initial organization process because you don't know if you got 15 or 2 sweaters.
Exactly.
So that makes good sense to me. Okay. How about this one? So most of us, thankfully, are blessed with not living alone. If you like to live alone, that's fine too. Uh, but so not hypothetically. So my situation, I lived with and still live. Actually, currently, I'm living with 4 women still. My wife and my 3 daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we have guests from international guests that are joining us in the summer. So this nice, neat idea, especially when my kids were young, of like there's one place for things. It feels like fantasy to me sometimes because I literally just gave up on it years ago. I'm coming back into, I would say, hope as my girls have gotten older and they have a higher appreciation for and cognitive ability for to follow a system. Both, but it's still difficult. Like the idea still feels a little bit fantasy for me to have a household where things go to their places and everybody puts them in their places.
Sure.
What do you recommend for that situation?
Yep. Well, so again, we're in some ways trying to retrofit a faulty system that we can't go back and undo it and teach the kids at an early age, in your case,
Yeah.
the value and importance of one home for everything and like with like.
Yeah.
If there had been possible consequences to them not adhering to managing their own things, it meant like they couldn't go to soccer practice or they couldn't go on to ballet because they didn't know where their cleats were, they didn't know where their toe shoes were. So I guess we're not going today because you can't find them, and I either need to leave today now, or you'll be late, and I'm not interested in being late. So I guess you're not going. I mean, you can create the consequences that, again, are aligned with their values, not your values.
Right.
So it's not about adhering to daddy's rules or mommy's rules. These are the consequences of not knowing where your stuff is. You don't have that much stuff, and you ought to be able to keep track of your things. and we'll build a system that will support that for you. So if you have small kids, if anybody's listening and has small kids, I would encourage you to start there, is create structure for them so that they take ownership of their own things as early as they can, and that if they misplace them, it's not about being punitive or aggressive or mean. It's just, this is reality, that if you can't find your shoes, if you can't find your sweater, if you can't find your school uniform, I mean, I'm not going to send you to school naked, and I'm not going to, your crisis isn't going to become a crisis for me.
Yeah.
It's your crisis. You clearly, yesterday you had a uniform, today you don't. So we have to solve that problem. And I also have other things on my schedule for today. So the fact that, I mean, you'll put on clothes, but you won't leave the house because they won't let you into the school without your school uniform. So I guess today you're going to spend time at home in other garments, and we'll figure out proactively how we're going to solve this problem so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So, that's a micro example. Now going back to your particular situation, right?
Yeah.
You can meet with the family and say, hey, I just interviewed this guy. You can listen to the interview if you'd like to, but there are a couple of takeaways that I think, like, one of the reasons why structure has not worked so well for us is because it's been a top-down situation. I made up the rules, or your mom made up the rules, or we made up the rules together, or we made up separate rules, but we didn't really collaborate on them. Whatever's happened in the past doesn't matter. From today, we're going to have a family meeting. We're going to talk about how we want to share space together so that it functions as well for everybody. So everybody's got buy-in, because everybody's going to be impacted by the choices we make.
Yep.
So, we can start in a neutral place like the kitchen, and decide, like, is this the best place for the spatulas to live? Is this a good place for the snacks to be? Can everybody find what they're looking for in this room? Then we can get more specific to, like, your room, daughter number 1, daughter number 2, daughter number 3, in the family room, in whatever the common other spaces are. Where do we want to keep the remote control for the television? It needs a home. It can't just be on the coffee table. It needs to be in a home. What do we want that to be? Do we want it to be this decorative basket? Do we want to put it in a bowl? Do we want to, Velcro it to the side of the coffee table? We just need to decide what's going to make the most sense for all of us, so that when we're finished using something, we put it back in its home, so anybody else who comes behind us will be able to find it when they need it. And that's a way of demonstrating our love and commitment to harmony in our own home, and supporting both our own growth and development as well as the people that we share space with.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. I think there's some really, really important notes that I just want to summarize. So, particularly for household, when there's stuff that you said and stuff that I'm projecting, but I think they tie. So if I misquote, please keep me honest.
Yeah.
I think the importance of mom and dad at least being on the same page with the same system, and then actually doing the work to create structure that has consequences. Not in this mean kind of,
Right,
but,
exactly.
it takes some work. And then later on with older adults, or with older kids,
Teens, tweens,
teens, yeah,
young
just
adults.
like get everyone on board. But and same thing, like mom and dad, I think, need to be on board, and to stay consistent and aligned.
Yeah, if anybody has any people pleasing tendencies, it's important to pay attention, particularly like the adults, right? The people who are paying the bills, adults. They
Yeah.
need to make sure that they don't have any people pleasing challenges around holding people accountable, and they have to be willing to be held accountable as well. So, as long as people are solid and clear, this works all the time, all the time. It's only when there's wobbliness and inconsistency that it's different than the idea of something exceptional has happened, we need to make an exception, is different than this is a pattern and it's a not useful pattern, or this is a habit, not a useful habit. So we need to replace it with something useful and functional, rather than this really, God forbid, there was a fire.
Yeah.
we are going to respond to that differently than, oh, I can't find my keys again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the same circumstances. They don't have the same consequences.
Okay. Rapid question. Is this accessible to everybody?
Of course, yeah. I've taught 4-year-olds and 94-year-olds the organizational triangle.
Okay.
As long as
Thank
there's no
you.
dementia, in older adults or I suppose in younger people,
Yeah.
as long as, ADHD, neurodivergency, all of those things can deal with the simplicity of the organizational triangle. What I will say for small people, not short people, I mean like young people,
Yeah.
uh, you as adults might like lids. Lids become barriers. Well, I mean, this is not true for older people as well, but they become barriers for kids. So if you say we want your plush toys in this container, but you put a lid on it, that creates dissonance and confusion to the kid. So if you want it in a tub, don't put a lid on the tub. That's gonna block their flow of understanding. Oh, this goes in that, right? So don't put an unnecessary bottleneck or speed bump in the process. If what you want are all the plush toys in that container, all the Legos in that container, then if you want their dirty clothes in a hamper, keep it in an open basket. You don't need a lid on it. You want the lid because you want things to look better. Almost always, and again, when you're sharing space and you're trying to build behavior in other people, consistency is where the habit is formed and reinforced. And we want the least amount of friction possible in the execution. So so to that end, I believe that function is superior to form. Form follows function, not the other way around. I mean, so we just want to channel our inner Frank Lloyd Wright.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Things can be beautiful.
Yeah.
They need to be functional more than anything else. If they don't function, they don't work.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how pretty they are. They're not. They're going to be used incorrectly, improperly, incompletely, inconsistently.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how long, would you typically say a person is gonna need to spend before they see some tangible results for themselves, some tangible like, my life feels better now. How long?
30 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, you'll get a big bump in your well-being just assigning a home to your keys, your phone, your wallet,
Yeah.
your bag. I mean, that's typically everything that we do starts with those quick and simple wins because
Yeah.
those are things that we use every day, right?
Yeah.
If you're a bag carrier, know where your bag lives. If
Yeah.
you have keys, know where your keys live. If you have a mobile phone, if that is, particularly if that's your primary phone, if you don't have a landline and you are using a mobile phone, in every room there should be a home for the phone. In my office, this is the home for the phone. This
Mhm.
dish, so I don't just set it on the desk surface.
Yeah.
The phone goes in this dish. If I'm not talking on the phone, it lives in this dish. I don't ever have to wonder where it is. It's not going to end up under a pile of mail or laundry. It's not going to slide between the cushions on the sofa. It's in its home. So in every room that you are in, the phone needs a home, a vessel of some kind. In the family room, in the kitchen, in your bedroom, in the bathroom, wherever you're taking the phone, it needs a vessel. So that it's either in its home or you're using it.
Okay. So totally leading question. If I'm like, okay, I'm in, I would like a little support. I'd like a little community. I want to at least start this process that's accessible to everyone, and that will give me more time and freedom in my life. You have a specific challenge that is perfect for that and super accessible. So, tell us a little bit about the challenge, the community, what it costs, to get started, kind of your elevator pitch, if you will, for how you're supporting people to have this change in their life.
Sure. Well, the De-Stress Your Mess Challenge is what you're talking about, and it's a 5-day challenge. Um, each day covers a different clutter hotspot or topic. Uh, we picked the 4 or 5 most prevalent, most common challenges. Paper. Every day includes mindset resetting because you need to drink enough of the Kool-Aid to have buy-in that you're gonna see the value and the benefit in the outcome. But again, the homework can be done in less than an hour for any of the topics. So day 1 is fundamentals and papers and filing. Day 2 is clothes and closets. Day 3 is kitchen and mental health. Day 4 is sentimental objects, and day 5 are the it's both inspiration day, and it is also, because it's the culmination of the last 4 days, and it's also the 3 things that we typically do that are undermining our ability to get and stay organized, that are pretty unconscious and pretty universal. So that's the overview of each of the 5 days. As I said, the homework for any of the days requires 60 minutes or less from the participant. There's a vibrant community of past and present participants that you can always connect with as an attendee. And the structure of it is that it provides a degree of accountability. So whenever you're doing your homework, you're not in a silo of your own thinking, and you can easily check out and disappear. So we've built a lot of things into the challenge to keep you engaged and winning.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to win. Most people like to win, right? Success breeds success. Failure breeds failure. So we try to give participants as many wins as possible, and we load up the challenge with fun and practical bonuses as well, tied to each clutter hotspot.
Yeah, nice. And what's it going to cost me?
That's an excellent question. The challenge has been priced at $19.97 and also $29.97 and $97, depending on what kinds of promotions we're running.
Right.
So
I was expecting in that at least $100 range. So
yeah. So I mean,
if you see it under $100,
price,
jump on it.
yeah, its rack price is $97 for 5 days.
Yeah.
And we often run promotional things to incentivize folks to sign up fast and sign up early.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And you also, Ron, I want to make sure that if you are a coach, because I've got a lot of coaches in my network, I serve coaches. If you are a coach and you're considering bringing on an interesting modality, I'm going to call this a modality of helping people organize their lives. You actually have a whole system that you teach others how to teach others how to do this. That's right. Right?
Yeah. So we've got a 10-week program, which is like really our flagship program. The De-Stress Your Mess Challenge is an amazing program. It's 5 days. So as you can imagine, it's like a sampler. It's not, it's tapas. I mean, they're tasty, well-constructed tapas. And the 10-week program is a banquet.
Yeah.
So you won't be hungry after either of them. The 10-week program goes obviously much deeper into the 5 topics that we've already covered in the De-Stress Your Mess Challenge, plus 5 more.
Right.
Then there's the Mellen Certified Organizer Program, which is a coaching certification program. So that if you were a coach and wanted to use the Unstuff Your Life system in your coaching practice, I would certify you to then be able to use those tools in your practice with any of your clients. So if you as a coach, if you have your own challenges around organization, you'll go through the Unstuff Your Life system. It's part of the certification program. But more importantly, you'll take somebody else through the program as a coach as part of your certification. And then any of your clients that struggle with time management and organization and project management, you'll have the tools to meet them. Chances are, if you're a coach that has a successful practice, you're successful at getting folks doing certain things and making shifts. If those are not necessarily tied into organization, time management, productivity, and or project management, you'll have more arrows in your quiver to be able to support them with a broader skill set than just perhaps executive coaching or things that are tied to more narrow outcomes.
Awesome. Perfect. So you want to get a seat at the organizational table and like move fast, far at a really low cost with a community to support you. Come into the challenge. You want to dig a little bit deeper. You're really ready to organize your life. That's our 10-week program, great for coaches and individuals. And if you want to take that to the next level, then that's where you've got the full certification process where you learn to teach and train while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Well, anything else at all that you feel compelled or called to share before we close out?
I think it's important to come back around and say that everybody can get organized regardless of ability, physical ability, neuro ability. This is not quantum physics. One home for everything and like with like is pretty fundamental. And while you might struggle with some attention challenges and some executive functioning, these are all skills that folks, we have lots of people in our community that are neurodivergent, some that have hoarding tendencies that make significant progress, folks with traumatic brain injury, that how simple the program is and how simple the structure is actually leans into their circumstances, their current conditions. And so I really want to encourage folks, if you've tried other things in the past and you have been less than as successful as you'd like to be, we are often the last stop on the train, right? I mean, people that found perhaps Marie Kondo's KonMari technique a little precious or a little limiting, you're not interested in being a minimalist. You like things. Minimalism and some of these other programs, they feel like more dogma to me, and they're more about adherence. And they also feel like they still have a focus on stuff. And we do not focus on stuff. You get organized. But the point of getting organized, as I said earlier, is really to buy you more free time to do the things that matter, which shouldn't be moving stuff from room to room and from drawer to drawer and closet to closet. The stuff is inanimate. It exists to serve and to make our lives more comfortable, more convenient, more beautiful. If it's not fulfilling any of those functions, it probably doesn't need to be around. And so it shouldn't be a heavy lift emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, physically to get and stay organized. And that's where I'd like to leave it, is that people, if you have felt overwhelmed in the past, if you felt stressed out, if you felt beleaguered by the weight of physical clutter, there is a way out. We found it. It works, and it works consistently. And I've been doing this work for almost 30 years, and people get the results when they do the work. So there's hope.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for that wisdom. There's something really important to know about people that go the distance. I think, like 30 years. It's like someone might hear that and be like, "It's stuff. Organize it." Like, It's not quantum physics.
Right.
Sometimes the simplest things that we ignore 4 or 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time, that just become part of our life. Those are the things that if we have experts that have slowed down, like you, that have done the work to put it in system, that is so simple to follow. So I absolutely, like, as a creator, I follow you and you're like, this system like helps people that maybe get overwhelmed really fast, because that's how you've created it into its simplest parts to put together so that you can live better. So I feel you there. I thank you for doing what you do in the world and for sharing it with me on the Fulfillment Focus podcast interview series. So thanks so much for being here.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks very much.
Awesome.